So we looked at removing rational numbers or fractions that are inside of a linear equation. We do that by multiplying by the denominator. Now, if more than one fraction is present, what we need to do is we need to multiply again each term by a common denominator. Okay, so we need to multiply each term by a common denominator, which is going to then get rid of all of them. So denominator to remove all fractions. Now this can get a little bit tricky, and we're just going to go through some of the important things to do. Sometimes the common denominator is the denominator, okay, which is in the first one here. Sometimes it's something different, and then we have to kind of use a little bit of a different method in solving for it. But we looked at when there's multiple ones before. We had an example in the previous lesson there. Here we have two denominators. Both of them are exactly the same, so we're going to multiply by 2 because that's going to get rid of this denominator. It's also going to get rid of this denominator right here. So we're going to multiply everything by 2, which is going to cancel these out, and it's going to cancel those ones out as well. And we're going to end up getting our we're going to end up having no rational numbers. We're going to end up having no fractions inside of our equation. So x is all by itself. 3 times 2 is 6. And then we have 5x that's going to be all by itself here as well. Okay. So we get to that point where we solve for, or we get to where we don't have any more fractions. And we do that by multiplying by a common denominator. Now we want to get our x is all into one side, and we'll do that to get our constant all by itself as well. So when you do this here, x minus x is just, well, nothing. Okay, it's 0. So we're going to have 6 is equal to 4x. 6 is equal to 4x. Then divide both sides by 4. Now here, remember when we're dividing by 4, we're not going to end up, well, we might end up with a fraction. In this case here, we will have a fraction, but that's okay. But we are getting x all by itself, and it's okay if x is a fraction. It just means that, well, it's going to be a fraction. 6 divided by 4 is the same as 1.5 or 3 over 2, okay, as a fraction, and that is equal to x. Both those values are okay, okay? 6 over 4 is the same as 3 over 2, simplified fraction. It's the same as 1.5. If you want to keep it as that decimal, you can. But if it is not a nice ending decimal, please leave it as a fraction. Okay, make sure to leave it as a fraction. The second example here is a little bit different. We have a 3 and a 4 as a denominator. Okay, we have a 3 and a 4 as a denominator. What that tells us is that we are going to have to multiply by something other than a fraction. Okay, we're going to have to, other than the denominator that's there, we're going to have to multiply by something other than that. And in this case here, we're going to multiply by a common denominator. Common denominator is 12. Okay, both 3 and 4 go into 12. So we're going to multiply this side by 12, and we're going to multiply this term by 12, and we're going to multiply this term by 12. All 3 of those terms all get multiplied by 12. Now, the important thing that we understand here is that it doesn't just cancel out and now we're done with our denominator. 12 divided by 3 is 4. So these cancel out somewhat, but now instead of multiplying by 12, we're multiplying that one by 4. 12 and 4 divide to be 3, so we're going to actually multiply this one now by 3. Okay, so we don't just cancel it out now like we did before when we had the exact same ones. We now have to actually figure out what we're multiplying by. So instead of multiplying by 12, 12 divided by 3 is 4, so we multiply by 4. So what we're going to get there, and I'm going to write this out in hopefully terms that make a little bit more sense. Okay, so we're going to have 2a times 4 is equal to 4a times 3 plus 5 times 12. Okay, and that's what kind of got rid of our denominators, but we're multiplying by something a little bit different. Okay, we're multiplying by something a little bit, we're not just multiplying by the same thing. It's going to depend on the term and what is canceling out. Okay, what is canceling out? 2a times 4 is 8a. 3a plus 4a times 3 is 12a, and then 5 times 12 is 60. So first, now, once I'm at this point here, I'm going to want to get my a's all together. So I'm going to subtract 12a from this side, and I'm going to subtract 12a from this side. These ones cancel out because they're now gone. And what we're going to be left with is 8 minus 12, which is negative 4a. And on this side, we're just going to be left with 60. And we're going to be left with 60. All right, at this point now, again, we're at that point where we can just get rid of the coefficient here. So we divide by negative 4 to get rid of that. Okay, so we divide by negative 4 to get rid of that. These cancel out here, and we're going to get a all by itself. Now again, here there's a few more steps that we have to do, right? Or it's a little bit more complicated we have to do. So a is all by itself. 60 divided by negative 4. Positive divided by negative is going to be a negative. 60 divided by 4 is 15. So a has to be negative 15. Yes, a is going to be negative 15. All right, so that's how we solve that. Let's do a couple other ones. Some are going to be a little bit more challenging. Some are going to be a little bit simpler. But what we need to do is we need to go through all of them, and we're going to kind of solve step by step. So let's take a look at this first one here. We have 4 and 5. Okay? The lowest common multiple of these two is 20. Okay, so we're going to multiply every term by 20. Multiply this one by 20. Multiply this one by 20, and multiply this one by 20. Okay, so now again, I'm going to go through one more step here. I'm going to show something a little bit more before we do any canceling out. Okay, what this is telling us here is it's going to be 3 times 20 minus x, 20 times x divided by 4. Okay, or actually, sorry, let's just switch that around here. Let's do divided by 4 here. Okay, 20 divided by 4 times x, and then it's going to be equal to 20 divided by 5 times x plus 2 times 20. Okay, this is what it's telling us here. We're multiplying everything by 20, but to get kind of what we're actually multiplying by, we need to divide by our denominators first. Okay, we need to divide by our denominators first. When we do that, this is going to be 5. This is going to be 4. Okay, it just so happens it works out really nice that way, that we get that. And so then our next kind of row, we can multiply. We have the 3 times 20, which is 60. And then we have 20 divided by 4, which is 5. So we're going to have 5x. And then we have 20 divided by 5, which is 4. So we're going to have 4x. And then we have 2 times 20, which is 40. Okay, so I'm taking each one of these little terms and I'm simplifying it down as much as I can. That's because I multiplied everything by 20. We aren't changing the equation. All we're doing is we're modifying what it looks like so that it is easier for us to solve. Or I should maybe even say possible for us to solve. Okay, because it's not possible to solve if we have more than, or if we have fractions in there. It's not possible to solve if we have more than one equation. More than one variable. All right, we're going to add 5 to both sides. 5x. And I'm going to subtract 40 from both sides to move it onto this side here as well. Okay, these are going to cancel out. These are going to cancel out. And what we're going to be left with here is, I'm going to move it up onto over here so there's a little bit more room. 60 minus 40 is 20. And 4x plus 5x is 9x. All right, now you can tell, again, we're getting back to that stage where we have kind of seen this already, and it's hopefully a little bit more, more visible to what we are doing. We divide both sides by 9. Cancel that out there. And now again, we're dividing 20 divided by 9. That's going to give us a decimal, so we're going to leave it as a fraction. We're going to leave it as a fraction. 20 over 9 is as simple as it gets. Unless you have a way of making it simpler, that'd be awesome to know. I don't, but that becomes x. So x is 20 over 9, which is the same as like 2 and 2/9. The same as 2 and 2/9, which would be like 2.2 repeated, I believe. That's without using a calculator. Let's see if 20 divided by 9. Yep, 2 and 2.2 repeated. All right, so we multiply by the common denominator and move on from there. Next one here. Okay, so here we have 5 and 2 are two different denominators. Okay, they're not the same. We need a common denominator. Our common denominator is going to be 10. So we're going to multiply everything by 10 times 10. And now you'll notice here, instead of having just a constant, the constant's actually a fraction. Okay, the constant's actually a fraction, which mixes things up a little bit, but you do the exact same thing. Okay, so we do the exact same thing. Now I'm going to simplify them right away instead of writing it all like I did on the first one here. 10 divided by 5 is 2, so we're going to multiply this one by 2. So it's 2 times 6t minus 10 divided by 2 is 5, so this is 5 times 1. And that's equal to, again, 10 divided by 2 is 5, so it's going to be 5 times 3t. And then 10 divided by 5 is 2, so it's going to be 2 times 2. And now we'll put all those together there. So 2 times 6t is 12t, 5 times 1 is 5, 5 times 3t is 15t, and 2 times 2 is 4. All right, let's get everything onto the same or similar sides there. So the 12t is smaller, so I'm going to subtract 12t from both sides. And that means that I'm also going to subtract 4 from both sides. These ones are going to cancel out here. These ones are going to cancel out here. And what we're going to be left with is -5 minus 4 is -9. And that's going to be equal to 15 minus 12t, which is 3t. And I'll slide that over here so I have a little bit more room. All right, now again, we're down to that last step. Okay, all we need to do now is divide both sides by 3. These are going to cancel out on this side here. And what we're going to be left with then is -9 divided by 3 is just -3, and this is going to equal to t. So that means that t has to be -3. Again, we can plug that back into a regular equation to verify, make sure that it works. We would get 18 over 5 minus a half, and then we would get, -18 over 5, and then we get -9 over 2 plus 2/5, and we could solve for that. I won't go through that because I don't want to extend this video too far. All right, last one here, we have 5, 3, and 6. Okay, 5, 3, and 6, the lowest common multiple of all three of those is 30. Ooh, big number. Okay, that's okay. 30, 30. Multiply every term by 30. Multiply by 30. All right, everything gets to be multiplied by 30. If we have a common denominator, we don't actually multiply by 30, we multiply by the 30 divided by our, sorry, if we have a denominator, multiply by 30 divided by our denominator. So what that's going to look like here, and we'll type this out really nicely here. 30 divided by 5 is 6, so this is 6 times 3r. And then 30 times 2, or sorry, it's 2 times 30, and this is equal to 30 divided by 3 is 10, so it's 10 times 1. And then 30 divided by 6 is 5, so it's 5 times 5r. Let's put all those together. Let's simplify them. We have 18r plus 60 is equal to 10 minus 25r. And I'm going to fix that up in just a little bit here. Let's see if this is going to work. It's just a little bit slow. I apologize for that. But we're going to have 18r here in the front. Yes, there we go. Okay, so 18R, and then here we have, yeah, got that all together there. All right, tends to be as the videos get longer, then the this whole thing slows down a little bit. So really, that means I should just make shorter videos, right? Yeah. All right. All right. We want to get all of our values onto the same side, so we're going to add by 25R, and that's becoming really glitchy. I'm sorry about that. We're going to add 25R on this side, and then we're going to subtract both sides by 60, and subtract by 60. And maybe what I should do is just do everything else just with pen, so to speak. All right, so here what we're going to get is we have 18 plus 25, so that's going to be 43R is equal to 10 minus 60, which is negative 50. And so we are going to divide both sides by 43. And I will attempt to do this again, even if it is a little glitchy. So divide by 43, divide this by 43. And again, you'll notice that we're going to get a decimal. Decimals are okay. We can gladly have that. And this is going to tell us that R is equal to negative 50 over 43. Okay, and that's our final answer. There's our fraction. We'll leave it just like that. We don't need to solve for it at all. Questions 8 and 9, I want you to work on that. Question 8, you're going through, does it actually work? Did the people do it correctly? So you have to kind of follow that along. And question 9 is all about multiple fractions inside of an equation.